Saturn 101. So when I was thinking about Saturn and how to go about this, the first thing that came to my mind was the idea of sin. Sin being something that you have to be away from, to not strive for or be in any capacity of sin. And then I said, just for kicks, let's see what the root meaning of sin means. And the Hebrew word for it is hata, and the Greek word is hamartia. And both Hebrew and Greek means missing the mark, as in archery. So it's basically, hey, you failed, right? Game over. And I found that fascinating because I was thinking to myself, when in archery, when you hit the target, you hit the bullseye. So I'm like, well, what if when we don't sin, we become the target? And when we are out of sin, which there's a lot of things that are sinful, like, maybe learning too much and going outside of the scope of the framework can be sinful. And it's about seeing what that looks like overall, right? That maybe too much knowledge is not good for you. And then I was like, that's so interesting, because I can see it from both perspectives. I can see it from the archer, and I can see it from the board, the point where you shoot. I can see it from both ends. And so because of that, I say, okay, well, do I want to be hit with the arrow? Or do I want to fall outside of the lines of this circle, right? Because a bullseye is also a circle. And then it leads us to this understanding of Saturn in its actual form. When you, if you want to Google or go into NASA and see that NASA has visuals of Saturn, and on its north pole, it has a giant storm. And that storm is considered as a hurricane, which hurricanes on this earthly plane is seen as some sort of god that is angry with world, or somebody's done something wrong and it's come to destroy all the houses and, just destroy people if it can, and cause turmoil. And this energy, even in itself, is very Saturnian. And Saturn has many faces, like a Rubik's Cube. It has many faces, and sometimes you might not be able to connect the dots, but it's there. You have another Saturn energy, which is the Hindu Shani, who also has rules and place things in place that you need to abide by. And he rides on a crow, I believe. And which is a little bit more different, because crows are very they are the in-between, right? So that's interesting, that's that added aspect to the archetype of Shani. But the Saturn energy is ultimately perfection within a boundary, because that's Saturn. Saturn wants things perfect. Saturn wants things in a certain way that there's order and discipline. If there's chaos, what matters? As long as it's beautiful, as long as it makes sense, as long as we get the outcome, or as long as we get the output of what we decided or what we needed to do. And so this six-sided cloud is a very interesting finding, right? When we see this is what is actually on Saturn, because the hexagon, 6 sides, number 6 meaning material form, meaning manifestation, not necessarily completion. You have signs like I said, Capricorn and Virgo, Aquarius, all these people who are who work very well with the Saturn energy, because naturally they are able to see things in a very practical way. And much like when you think of a hive, when you think of a bee, and it will relentlessly keep going and going and going, working, and then to the point of exhaustion, and then that's it. That's the end. And that's the Saturn energy. Is that fair? No. I'll answer for you. No, it's not fair. So all these frameworks, whether it's institutions like churches or schools or whatever, right, that's saying you must follow this order of things. And if you don't, then you get the wrath. You have the hurricane. You will destroy and destruct if you do not follow the orders. And so, once upon a time, you have some scholars that sat around and said, hey, we heard about the big flood. Everybody spoke about this flood. Some people call it Sodom and Gomorrah. People were doing things that they should not be doing. People were thinking that they were gods. People were realizing things that they should never realize. So in the second generation, what are we going to do to put some restraints? What are we going to do to put some order for the people? Because they've already shown themselves that they can get out of control. Okay? And so they came together and they made the New Testament. And they said, hey, who around here is popular right now? Who's popping right now? Because we really don't, we're not out there with them people. You know, we're not out there with the smalls. There's a guy named Joshua. He's doing miracles. He's believing in himself, and he's doing things. He's liberating people from gods that are actually the older gods. And he actually might be really useful for our New Testament. Okay. Well, I don't like Joshua. Yeshua? Joshua? I don't like that name. We've got to jazz it up a little bit. We've got to make it our thing. It's the Renaissance right now. Okay? And the scholars all came around and they said, we need to put Zeus up in there. And therefore, and behold, you have Jesus. And essentially, where we come to the Christians versus, because I was thinking, now who is against this? Because there must be somebody that was against this kind of like ideology of rigid formats of Christianity, of religion. And you had the Gnostics. The Gnostics were, the Latin for word Gnostics is to be enlightened, right? It's insight. And it's to be knowledgeable. It's to find things outside the framework. And naturally, that would be the Christian church's nemesis. Because why are you doing anything outside of what is in the Word of God? Why are you doing that? Hey, listen to me. You stick to the Bible, you stick to the Word, and that's it. Because the Word is God, the Word was God. What are you doing? So the Gnostic says, yeah, even the Old Testament God don't like us because we're out here, we're doing astrology. We're out here looking at the stars, and they don't want us to do that because we're gonna start clocking. And we're gonna start understanding. And they did understand. They understood that there are planets that are seen by the telescope, seen with the naked eye. And based on their search of knowledge and going around and being nomadic and searching for truth from other storytellers, they understood. They knew Joshua. They knew Yeshua. They knew who this guy was. And they said, you know what? For humanity, he's not going to be too bad. I don't mind him. But the Old Testament God, he don't like us one bit. And we don't like him, but we don't want to talk too loudly because he gets angry. one thing they understood is that they were like, we're going to ensure that people know how to come out of the limits and control of Saturn, because essentially you will stay in this siphon over and over again. What is it Erica Badu said? $3.06. Yeah, you may laugh, but you didn't do your math. And it's the 369, it's the 360, it's the cipher, it's the circle that you are to stay in forever. It's the astrological obsession of, oh, I have this in my chart, I have that in my chart. No. You're supposed to ascend the chart. This is practice. So we were speaking about sin. And I think I'll speak about the sign, S-I-N, mathematical equation at the end. But it led to this idea of restraint, order, to stay in line, to not miss the mark. And understanding that with the Gnostic knowledge of archons, and they govern all of these planets. The archons, you can think of them as butlers. The person who assigns the butlers, they say, hey, look, everybody's wine needs to be filled to the brim. I don't want to see it halfway. If it gets halfway, you need to top it up again. Yes, master, what else would you want? And yeah, keep everyone just happy, like just, you know. And that's the conditions of a butler. So when you have your signs astrologically, if you have Saturn in your chart, that's going to be the signs. This person needs to work and understand. They need to work hard at this. You know? Wow. You see me? Hey. You have to keep working. And maybe sometimes it might be challenging because that's Saturn energy. It says go outside, but don't go outside. It says, oh, you find it hard? Oh, sorry. Sorry, mate. Oh, you're going to cry. And what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to kind of have you need to see these planets as demons, okay? Because I think we're kind of doing too much love and light with these things, okay? We need to see them for what they are, and we need to be able to understand that they're demons, they're deities, two different things that are to help us, and they're neither for or against you. You know what I mean? But know who they are. They're not your pals. Oh, I get Mercury, blah. I get this and that. No. It's militant when you see it. Okay, cool. All right. What's my chart saying? All right, it's saying this, it's saying this. So that means I'm going to be more challenged here. It could indicate that my parents were doing this or being like this, and I've incarnated into this lifetime to be this way. Do you follow? So where the Gnostics saw these archons, they saw them as the demiurge, or aka Satan. And it is telling across time that we are in this world of sin, and what governs this world is Satan himself. And we are under his rules, and we are under the regulations of his rules. And if for whatever reason he don't like us, when somebody doesn't like you, but they have to govern you, think of your supervisor. Yeah, you're like, yeah, I hate my supervisor, or I hate my director, or I hate my manager, or whatever, right? Here's a strong word, say dislike very much. And that governance that they have over you, they're like, look, I don't like you either, but I've got to be here. So if I have some power to do this and do that, firstly, I have to report back to boss man. Yeah, I have to tell him, look, this is what I've laid out. This is the architect's or the framework that I've laid out. This is the blueprint. This is the blueprint I've laid out. And then he gets his signed off, and he says, all right, cool. There might be a bit of loopholes here and there. Your supervisor might say, yeah, oh, are you sure you don't want to work late tonight? You sure? And then you feel bad and you're like, oh no. That's a loophole because they're not supposed to do that, right? Oh, but we got pizzas coming in, you know? That Saturn energy. And what you're supposed to do, you're supposed to rise from it. You're supposed to say, not be afraid. Saturn is to rise above the fear that is binding you in that particular part of your chart. And just in the world, because this is where it's at. And once you're able to kind of do that, once you're able to see through the illusion, it's not to say, hey, let's start a riot, let's never do this again, I'm not doing that, you know. No. It's to go with understanding that you are in this world of sin, as Jay-Z says, okay? And love does help a bit. It does help to take the edge off of the calamities of life. But ultimately, everybody has a course that they have to go through, and they got to work it out. You know, it's not to go against it. It's not to say, you know, hey, I don't want to do this. I don't want to pay my bills. I don't want to. No, it's okay. I know that I'm in this framework, but how can I make it so it benefits me? But also, I remember why I'm here, and I remember who I am in this plane. And why I need to, what really matters, which I'm just going to get to the chase, is your soul. Your soul is the most important thing in this world. It doesn't have any, no material aspect can counter what your soul is. And so in order for you to ascend, yes, you must do both things. You must both navigate in the physical, but also navigate in the spiritual. And Saturn doesn't do the spiritual thing. And if it does encapsulate the spiritual thing, it will manipulate it so that it can form more structures and more boundaries. And what you don't want to do is be like a bee and just whack. Because if you do that, that you never ascend and you come back here again and you do the same thing over and over again. So what we also have the understanding that Saturn is a slow moving planet. And Saturn has a way of, so like if you have friends or family that are like 1 or 2 years older than you, whatever, like likelihood is that you're both going to have Saturn in the same house, right? So that's how slow it moves, right? And so with that, it's understanding how stern that energy. It says, I'm going to stay in the sun and you're going to really feel the energy of Saturn. I don't move quick. I take my time. I take my time to give you problems, okay? I don't want peace. I want problems always, okay? That's Saturn. Now, it was so interesting, right? Because what I saw, I was reading, I don't know, sometimes I just read, I don't know, maybe synchronicities, I don't know. But I was reading this book, The Druid Plant Oracle, and I came across the understanding of, or their understanding when it comes to herbs, how herbs align to the planets as well, right? So it says here, astrologers assign Saturn, the planet of structure and limitation, to Woad. And if you have chosen this card reversed, it may mean that the structure around you is hindering rather than helping you. Perhaps you are feeling wounded or hampered by obstacles, longing for freedom from the limitations around you. If this is the case, it may be of help to turn this card around and gaze at the image upright, particularly at the sky. Rather than thinking about what you want freedom from, think about what you want freedom for. Finish the sentence, I want freedom to ... If you are able to find goals that make your heart sing, the very things that seem to be standing in your way can become stepping stones that lead to flowering of creativity. In the same way, if you feel wounded, although it is important not to deny that awareness, it may be helpful now to shift your focus from the wound to what you would give to the world. So that's very interesting, because a lot of what is being said here, we would say the opposite of that is a Jupiterian energy. Okay, it's about expansion, it's about creativity, it's jovial. And we can, and even with this framework, when we think of woad in its sense, this biennial plant is a bitter. It's a bitter's drink, right? If you was to boil it up. And with bitters drinks, it's a common practice that if you have any upset stomachs, or you have presumably any parasitic behavior inside, you would drink this to alleviate these things, or ease it at least. And the fact that woad, or this bitters, is under the sign of Saturn, but also says it's a bittersweet thing. So yes, when you taste it, it tastes disgusting, but your body was like, oh my gosh, thank you. She or he is not eating hamburgers again. Like we got some of the good stuff, because it's getting kind of rough down here, And but the framework that it's in is fascinating, because it suggests that Saturn is both, it's both fair and both unfair, and I would say that's a fair perspective to have when it comes to the Saturn energy, because sometimes when you are going through the grit of it, it isn't all grueling aspects. If you're working hard towards somewhere and you're staying late nights and you want to achieve this thing, that is Saturn energy. And then you achieve it, right? You get it done. And then Saturn rewards you and says, hey, yeah, see, I don't like you. I don't really like you. That's why I want you to work hard, because who do you think you are? You're on my domain. Sorry, but work for it. Yeah. So with that, you get rewarded for hard work. Now, there are some imbalances, because I would say, to be fair, not all the time you work hard. You could be working hard in the wrong area. So this is where your astrological chart. And even what they said, they were like, hey, what is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to give? Because that's going to literally open up your world as to why you're here. And the Saturn energy by default, and I don't think the Saturn energy likes humans, right? So by default, it's pushing you to do something that you would like to do, as opposed to what you've in the midst of chaos, in the midst of sin, you've fallen into, because you think that's the right thing to do, right? And I was thinking Saturn is so fascinating, because Saturn will work through so many people just to make you feel some type of way. And the feeling is to not feel some type of way, is to never have fear when it comes to Saturn. Because that's the point. Once you're fearful, it's like, see, I don't like you humans, man. You don't know nothing, but you guys are always on some next thing. You're always crying. You're always sad about something. Whatever, man. Yeah? And now you're going to be like, no, dry your tears, and you just get it done. You just say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to wait in the church when you're supposed to give your tithes. Be a cheerful giver. But the fact is, it's like, when I say that, it's more like it's giving Jupiter, because Jupiter trumps Saturn, because it's about expansion, where Saturn's about not so much. It's about being rigid. But it's also the sign of you gotta find balance between Jupiter and Saturn. So if you have any transits that Jupiter's going into, and your Saturn is in that particular house as your natal sign, as your natal planet, this is going to be a good day for you. Or if you have Capricorn, again, if there's Jupiter around there, this is going to balance you out. So it's seeing it in that way and seeing what superpowers you gain with. It literally is like a game. When you play, I don't know, when you play, show my age. I don't know what the new games are out, okay? I remember Mortal Kombat, yeah? And when you played Mortal Kombat, if your friend decided they're going to choose a certain player, okay, you're going to make sure that the player that you choose is going to be a good enough opponent to have a good advantage of winning. And it's much like with your chart. If you know that Mercury is in lemonade next month, what can you do to prepare yourself for that? And this is not obsessing over your chart for every single transit that's moving in the sky every single day. No. This is about just saying, okay, let me understand myself here at this time. If something, let's say in the algorithm comes up that they're saying, oh, this is happening, maybe, okay, I'll quickly check on it, but I'm not going to make it a big deal because I'm not going to be fearful of anything. So with this planet, which is slow moving, it's about understanding how you alchemize that to your best interest. So things that can do this: Jupiter can trump Saturn. The sun can trump Saturn because it's bright and it's cheery. You know, think of a Leo. Think about the vibes that brings. It's warm. It's magnificent. It's a lot of things. Only the sun. No one else can be like the sun. Okay, no one else can share the sign. No one. It's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean? And it's the clarity. It's music. It's vibes. It's Saturn is not that guy. Saturn is on the porch, yeah, complaining about if somebody's on his lawn. You know, that's the energy. Just miserable every day. And I thought, when it comes to the sun will just be like, hey, look, stop being miserable. Come on and dance with us. Come and have you guys, just come and stop the noise, you know? That's how you're supposed to alchemize. That's the energy, it's the emotion, how you're dealing with these things. So if, for example, I mean, I would say that more in my Mercury retrograde video, but it's allowing you to alchemize it in a way that you're not in fear and you're not like, oh my gosh, I'm like, none of that. Because this is just their frameworks that you're meant to work through. It's not to obsess over. You know, it's like it's obsessing over a door. It's weird. Stop. So when we think of the orbit of Saturn is, you know what? It reminds me of the architectural symbol of insulation. And it has varying, so you've got, I would say Saturn is like a medium loop, Uranus is a very tight loop, and Jupiter is much wider. So even in its orbital motion, it moves in a very tight, insulative way. And then you have Jupiter, which is the same, it's got the same power and the same strength, the same loop, but it's wider. So it can soften this Saturn miserable guts energy and, you know, just keep it at bay. Then you have Mars, right? Which also is different, right? Because Mars will be one of those energies that says, yeah, maybe violence might be needed in this situation. I don't promote violence, but Mars is the energy of war, right? So it's like brute force. It's kind of charging through. It's say, oh, you don't want me to get through this door. I'm gonna bust the door open. How about that? Like, that's the energy. And so I would say these are the archetypes that can trump Saturn, and that is more the emotional energy that would be helpful to explore when doing that. So let's go to, I was talking about sin or sign, and I was wanting to understand from a perspective of, I wonder if the mathematical sign, symbol, or equation of sin, can match up to the idea of Saturn or the idea of sin or these restrictions. And yeah, the pi or sin sign is a circle, right? And the circle is the siphon is an order. It's the 360. It's just constant, right? It is time. It is astrology. It is chaos. And even in that sense, right, we work through the varying aspects of sin. And I say that to say, when we think of the Bible, when we think of the parables, right? And parables being an illustration of enlightenment. But the root word for parable is parabola, which is the mathematical format for focusing of energy. I don't know why I just thought of it, but I was thinking of Dragon Ball Z. Oh my God. Where he does the Kamehameha. Anyway, what the things that are like parabolic is are things like a satellite dish, right? It has a concentrated form of energy, right? Let me just get my pen out. And then it has like an antenna. But this concentrated force, the vertex, right, is emitted through the antenna, and then the antenna disperses out the signals, right? It's something that is used, it could be used for war, and it can be used for love. We also have a car light, for example. It's also using this curvature, right, that harnesses energy, focuses energy into one spot, and then once exerted or something exerts the energy through it, bounces off and creates a mass of light. This is what a parable. This is what the understanding of parable, right? So parables are, the idea is to concentrate a story, right, and allow you to be part of that story and allow you to learn something from that story. And that story or that parable is given to everybody, right? It's like folklore, right? It's things that are told and concentrated and dispersed throughout time. We are the vertexes. We are going out and dispersing the story out to the world. So I actually quite like that the scholars fought together to use the word parable. I think that's very clever. So where it stands, when I think of parable, and I think of the parable of Lazarus, right? So Lazarus was outside some rich man's house, and the guy just looked at him in his finest robes, yeah. And he just looked at him and walked over him and said, I don't know what you're doing outside of my house, yeah, but just get your money up, innit? Like, not my problem. He goes inside his house and he lives his life. He thinks nothing of it. And there's only a little dog that's licking the wounds of this leopard man. And at some point, Lazarus dies. And also, the rich man dies. But what's happened here is that Lazarus is on the side of, he's on the good side, basically. And Lazarus is in torment. And not Lazarus, the rich man is in torment. And he's like, look, like, just, I beg you, just give me a bit of water. Like, it's a bit hot over here. It's a bit spicy. and, and, uh, and he's just like, they see him with Abraham, and Abraham's like, look, no, I brought down my guys to tell you guys about how to act in this plane. And you decided to stay in Satan's realm. That's what you want to do. That's your bits. I told you, you didn't want to listen. You know, what you gonna do? He said, yeah, but like, we're here. I can see you, you can see me. Like, just beg you, it's really hot around here. It's like, look, there's a barrier. I can't, hey, look, I'm not above the rules. There's a barrier here. I can't access you. Sorry about it. And that parable, even though I have some critiques on it, that parable is about being able to see beyond the veil, is being able to understand that it is as above, so below. And it is understanding that it isn't just a dream. It isn't just, sleep tight, don't let the bed bugs bite. There's more to sleep. There's more to this other unconscious aspect of self. And once we start to understand, this is where I think, honestly, to overcome the Saturn energy is to ultimately know when you're dreaming, right? Which is maybe called lucid dreaming, but know that you are in a dream and know that that realm that you're in is like a hyperbola, is like a, where do we have here? Is like a hyperbola. And what is a hyperbola? So hyperbola, so we have a circle, we have an ellipse, we have a parabola, and we have a hyperbola. Now, the hyperbola is a set of conditions within a set of conditions. What do I mean by that? So I don't know, man. My mind is very playful, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know why I'm alluding to Dragon Ball Z every minute right now. But like when, what's his name? Vegeta had to go into the hyperbolic chamber to simulate the feel of the world that had, I think it was King Kai's world, where it had so much gravity. And he wanted to simulate that to learn how to fight in a dense environment. So he changed the conditions within this chamber to train and fight to be stronger, right? Because the conditions on the earth, he would never be stronger in that environment. And I say that to say the hyperbolic mind, or the mind is hyperbolic, because in the mind you can create conditions and spaces and things in your waking state, in meditation, for example. But in your dream state, if you can do that in your not so conscious state, in the in-between, you've worked it out. You've controlled your mind. And more often than not, when you are having dreams, I mean, I would even say this still sticks to the Saturn energy, and it still sticks to this world of confined and constraint, that's the one thing that you can say is certified that you can work through, and that is yours. And is it to say that can be infiltrated with electromagnetic waves? I'll leave that up to you. But either way, whatever dark aspect of yourself is coming up through your dreams, that's still Saturn energy, and that's still something you can work through and overcome. And so once you, again, as above, so below, if you can work that out in your unconscious mind or your subconscious mind, you can also do that in your waking mind. And once you're able to kind of navigate the two, you are literally pleasing both Saturn and you're both pleasing your higher self as well. And I think that's what all these these guys out here, they're working out mathematical magic, right? They're saying, look, if we create this shape, we can enhance the energy, we can enhance it by creating more light or more signal or whatever. And so with these sciences that are being put in place to further, whether it's distraction, whether it's music, whether it's subliminals, whatever it is, there's people constantly trying to understand how to control humans, right? And the Bible is not exempt from that. People are literally scholars that have spent years and years reading so many different things, traveling different places to find a way to understand the human mind. And then this is the boss level. So when you really understand who you are, you can then defeat Saturn. You can then overcome him. Or not necessarily overcoming as though you're stronger, but like more in a sense, like you don't allow the restriction to put you in fear. I think that's the best way to put it. So that's Saturn. I'm trying to think if I've left anything. Yeah, so when I also was thinking about MJ Earth Song, what have we done to the world? Look what we've done. What about all the peace that you pledge your only son? It's a very Virgo critique-esque vibe going on here. Michael Jackson, rest in peace. But it's true. When we think about the parables of Jesus or the parables in the Bible, and we think about the constraints, wasn't this idea of Jesus, or wasn't this idea of the constraints meant to give us, wasn't this supposed to work? And in fact, no, it wasn't, right? Saturn is about chaos. He said, I don't know who told you that, but I like problems, okay? Don't give me peace. And so it's up to you in the midst of chaos is to find this peace. And I think even with Michael Jackson, he's like a lot of people in this world. Like, we've just had enough. Like every day people are warring. Every day some people are dying. Every day some next madness is happening to a child. Every day something. All these frameworks and no peace. And Saturn's like, yeah, I said what I said. Those are my rules. I like nice things, but I want chaos at the same time. So, take it to HR. I don't know what you want me to say. And so you are literally acknowledging the fact that you are living in a world of sin. And as Jay-Z says, all I need in this life of sin is me and my girlfriend, Because love does take the edge off. It does. It makes things easier to navigate this world of sin. But it's to not deny that this is what it is, or not to elude or fall for the illusion, but to know that it exists and know how to safely navigate through it. And not seeing it from a perspective of like, oh man, what about Jesus? I know Michael Jackson he knows what's up. He knows, I just feel like now we need to see our chart differently. We can't be glorifying these archons, because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, you're glorifying a door, and that's weird. Okay, but yeah, I think that's it. And I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.